Tell me about the founding journey. That's pretty wild.
It's not something we planned. Um, Not at all. So I was a GM for a new construction company beforehand. We lost a big contract, so they let the GM go.
So, talk to me a little bit about growing your team. You've been able to grow really fast, and you've got a great team now. Where are you finding great people to work for CR Plumbing?
Big factor the way I find guys. If you can go on Facebook, go to the search engine, go to and type in plumber or whatever trade you're in, and then filter to people. And then from there, you can actually scroll down to exactly what city they live in. So look for people close by.
How do you think about marketing spend as a percentage of like your revenue? Is there a target? Is it just you're going by kind of by your gut? How are you thinking about it?
You've got to be able to track down where it's coming. So are you making 100% ROI from it?
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Superpro podcast, where we celebrate the pros who are driving innovation and excellence in the home service industry. I'm Roland Leitenberg. I'm your guide, your host, and co-founder of House Call Pro. And I'm lucky enough to have all these conversations with the top leaders, movers, and shakers in the field. Today, I'm super excited to introduce Clayton Robinson. He's the CEO of CR Plumbing. He started his business right before the pandemic. We're going to talk about that. I've got a ton of questions, but he's shown an immense amount of resilience and strategic insight in growing his company already to 23 people with a fleet of 7 trucks, aiming to hit about 5.4 million revenue this year. We'll dive into his journey, explore his team building strategies, and we'll discuss some of the lessons he learned along the way, even some that he wished he could teach younger Clayton. So welcome to the show, Clayton. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. You're doing great.
Nice. So right before we jumped on this, we were talking a little bit. You started the company right before the pandemic hit. Tell me about the founding journey. That's pretty wild.
It's not something we planned. Not at all. So I was a GM for a new construction company beforehand. We lost a big contract, so they let the GM go. That day, I've never had calls during the day to do extra work. Well, that day I was busy, and we've been busy ever since. Never stopped going. A week later, COVID hit. Now everybody in the community we had and in their neighborhood, we got to kind of connect with, and they just helped us grow. Everybody looked closer, and we just took care of customers and then kept growing from there.
I feel like when the pandemic hit, people were like, I can't let people into the homes. But I think when it comes to plumbing, they end up using it more and probably were like, oh, wait a minute, now we really need someone in the homes.
Yeah, definitely was.
So talk to me a little bit about growing your team. You've been able to grow really fast, and you've got a great team now. Where are you finding great people to work for CR Plumbing? How are you sourcing them? How does that work?
So, once we get one in and support them and take care of them, they end up telling everyone that they know. And there's been a couple companies that got mad because their guys just started coming in and coming over. They'd call us up and be like, hey, you need something. We're not taking them. We're just supporting them and growing with it, as well as taking care of customers with that. But a big factor, the way I find guys, if you can go on Facebook, go to the search engine, go to and type in plumber or whatever trade you're in, and then filter to people. And then from there, you can actually scroll down to exactly what city they live in. So look for people close by. Tired of traveling 45 minutes? Boom. Hey, we're down the street. Direct message them. Keep talking to them. Go on the Facebook pages, head gut plumbers up through there. Facebook's been a big asset for us to help bring in good talent.
I love that. That's so hacky, but also it makes total sense, especially nobody wants to drive and commute crazy hours. And so you can probably easily see if someone's close to you, yet they're working for a company in like the town next by or like further away. Those are probably prime candidates that are looking to at least cut down on that commute and work for a local company.
And sometimes the person I talk to now might not come over, but 6 months from now, they remembered. And then they keep seeing our trucks after we talk to them. They keep seeing our stuff pop up on social media. This is a branding campaign. We even have an ad that's actually branding just for recruitment. So it keeps on going through. Small little ad of money, but keep top of mind. Technicians keep seeing it. Customers see it, and they kind of brings them in there.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really interesting point, which is, and this is a great golden nugget, which is, you can do like your advertising for homeowners also gets seen by potential technicians. And then also you advertising like you're growing, come join the team is also advertising for technicians. But then also the homeowners are seeing that. They're like, wow, CR Plumbing, they're a growing company. They're everywhere. They're doing really good. Like,
They must be taking care of customers.
yeah, like how could they be growing this well? So I almost feel like, some people are like, well, I don't have ad money to spend on that. It's like, well, it may be hard to attribute, but I think what you just mentioned, which is that brand play and just seeing it everywhere and seeing the trucks on the road in their local areas, I think that starts to build up over time.
If you can't spend $500 a month on just something small like that as a drip, then there's other holes you got to fix in the company.
Yeah, that's a good, another good thing. So I think a lot of pros, they don't necessarily know how much they should be spending on things. And I think a traditional marketing agency probably won't even tell them like spend money on, trying to hire and fill a pipeline of things. Like, how do you think about marketing spend as a percentage of like your revenue? Is there a target? Is it just you're going by kind of by your gut? Like, how are you thinking about it?
Well, so standards, there is a percentage over total revenue, but that all changes with whatever you're doing. But if you're not tracking it, then you might as well just be throwing it all away anyways, just tossing the money out and burning it. You've got to be able to track down where it's coming in. So are you making 100% ROI from it? But if you're not using House Call Pro to do all the different ad numbers they have, so they call in for whatever ad, if it's PPC, LSA, Facebook ads. But if anything, some of the Facebook's cheaper to get generating into your website and then book a call.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got to be able to have your right marketing team tracking that so you can see, okay, how many come there? What is our ROI from that conversion?
Yeah, and I think it all starts with like getting really good data in. And if you're not tagging the leads correctly, not setting the lead source correctly, like out of the gate, it's going to be really hard down the road to be able to like, oh, now let's figure out what we need to spend this month. Well, if you haven't tagged any of your things correctly, you're going to have a hard time building those reports up. What are you seeing as far as like marketing? Imagine you were telling Clayton 4 years ago now, like, hey, start with this channel first and then this next channel. Like, what order would you advise yourself, like younger Clayton, to go in?
Well, at the beginning, I was running the truck with the guys. In the first 6 months, we had 3 or 4 vans going, one of mine as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't do some of the other aspects, but I had to make time for networking. If you don't network, that's where you build those relationships that people, now it turns into everyone is putting down your name. So now, like, I go network all the time, but when people go on Facebook, my customer sees like 5 or 6 to 26 of our name put out there before I even say anything. But so Facebook and networking, they all go on in the same before we even start spending with ads.
That was step one. But that's free, but it's not necessarily free in that it takes your time. So how are you thinking about like time allocation and how are you like when you were starting out, where would you go to network? Is it like the BNI? Is it like those kind of classic places or
so
chambers?
BNI, master networks. Learn if you're going to do one of BNI's master network, something that they have to have. They want you to track your face-to-faces. They want you to track your ROIs and stuff like that, because it's going to teach you how to network. Before you go to the chambers, once you start going to the chambers, you got to network the right way. You got to get to know that person. But if you don't have an hour out of your day, you've got bigger problems than that. If you can't create 1 hour, that 1 hour consistently every day for the next 6 months will generate so much more work and so much more money coming in there that'll force you back out of the truck just from that.
That's a great golden nugget, because if you're not doing enough, if you're not being forced back on the truck by the work that you're generated. So it's a really kind of a good barometer on like, is what you're doing actually working? And when that happens, do you continue to network or do you kind of pull back a little bit? Or are you just like, you know what, 1 hour a day, every day, this is what I'm doing for this first year?
Once you stop, you're going to, so it takes about 3 to 6 months, depending on if you're personable or not. Some of us technicians are not, but if you're communicating with people and getting personable, that will start creating the ROI from that. But once you take 1 month off, it takes you 2 months to get back. So you don't stop. Consistency is a key. Consistency is key in business. Consistency is key in networking. You got to keep consistent, keep showing. They'll start showing more work come in because they see you all the time. They feel like you network so much that when you don't go, everybody else thought you were still there because it's weird for you not to be there.
Oh, I like it. That's a good, we're going to have to turn that part into like a reel. And so now that you're 4 years in, how often are you networking now? Like, are you still out there an hour every day? Or are you doing it like an hour a week or how are you balancing that out?
So I'm part of a Grapevine chain, 2 different chambers, also a couple other networking groups. So I'll probably spend 3 to 4 hours out of the week networking. And then my director, she also goes to other chambers. And so it's getting your other leaderships in your team to start networking. Now you start double down on that. You're basically reintroducing yourself into those. And most of the time they can do it better than you. My director does it way better than I do.
And I feel like that's a really great tip because at a certain point, you're still showing your face. The company is still CR Plumbing, and so I think people seeing the owner there, even as you're growing, is still important. But getting that replication on your other parts of your team, going out and doing that, because there's only so many BNI groups you can join before they're like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be joining 4 BNI groups in one city. You got to spread out the love a little bit. Same with chambers and things like that. What's next? So now that you've done this networking piece, this is taking you pretty far. What's next from a marketing perspective? What makes the phones ring?
Well, you've got to do that. You've got to do multiple things at the same time. You can't just do one and then, hey, once I did this one, check the box. No, that doesn't work like that. You have to, your Google business is very important. You have to have, and that's all organic. I mean, you can easily do that all yourself if you're starting all that. But the SEO, if you just get to the point where you're starting to bring ads to try to push more, LSA has been our biggest home run. It's most cost effective. It hits more of the map section in there. PPC is more, it costs more, but they're bigger tickets. So they can, but LSA, you get more bang of your buck from that. Facebook ads, they're cheap to bring in generational leads, but it's just like networking. People see it constantly, over and over and over.
So you're really just, there's many engines that are going at any one time. And so even when you're starting off young, you're starting, even sub $1 million, you're still investing in multiple different fronts. It's not just really one angle only, although you might have different budgets probably, right? As you become bigger. But you're still firing on those cylinders early on. Yeah. So once you, you got to a place in your business where you're not spending as much time on the field, what does it look like, running a $5 million business? What is the rest of your day really focused on? Is it a lot of training and managing, or are you still doing ride-alongs? What does it look like?
My main job is to support my team. My team are my customers. The customers are theirs. How are we supporting them at all times? From training to working through problems together. Sometimes taking that 30, 40 minutes and just have a conversation with them. We keep talking we are all CR Plumbing, because every person that goes out there, they're expecting what our entire team to be the same across the board. So supporting them, supporting my managers, and help bring in more and more as we switch to get to the next level. My whole job is to bring in work for our entire team to make it where they're so overwhelmed that we have to bring on more guys.
Yeah. And how are you managing culture as you're growing? Because when you grow that fast, sometimes it's hard to maintain that culture. And a lot of pros are it wasn't the same anymore. Once it got to the state, how are you maintaining that same culture, and what things are you doing either daily or weekly to make sure that kind of stays the way that you want it to be? Consistency
and communication. If you're consistent with your team and do what you say and consistently show up and consistently support them, they start trusting you and they start wanting to do more and wanting to be able to create this organization, what we wanted, and just listening to them, listening to concerns. And sometimes it's like a snowball effect. If their problems up here, but there's something so small that they don't think. But by the time it gets down to the bottom, it's a big old. You just have to take that time and have those conversations and work through it so we can get to the core problem. And half the time it's a lack of communication on one side or the other or both sides. But making that time, I might not have time for 30-minute conversation, but when it comes there, I have to take advantage of that and just make that time happen. And all my leaders do the same thing. And the more we're all consistent together and communicate to the team the same way, the team supports each other and they get in the same competition. So now we're all doing the same thing across the board, taking care of the customer the same way, supporting each other the same way.
Yeah, I think being consistent, doing weekly one-on-ones, doing team huddles daily, like those types of things, and just making that as a part of that's just what you do maintains that, not just that consistency, but that layer for communication, so that you can find time, to have those, because sometimes things move fast in the business, and you're off on one job to the next job, to the next job. You don't want to let something fester for too long. If there's a problem, you want to catch it soon, and make sure you can address it. And it's too easy as an owner to sometimes kind of turn your back or be like, I don't know, that happened too long ago. I don't even want to talk about it.
Poor emotion will fix it. Yeah. Sometimes poor emotion doesn't fix it. Sometimes we have to take this awkward situations, and 90% of the time that we don't want to have that conversation, it turns into nothing in the first place. But if you didn't have it, it's worse than going ahead and having it.
Oh, that's another good clip. Definitely marking that spot there in the podcast. I feel like there's a lot of golden nuggets. Well, at some point you started using House Call Pro. How soon into the business did you use House Call Pro, and what was kind of the reasoning for bringing that into the mix?
A month in, I was using QuickBooks with processing like payments and everything else. So I jumped on House Call Pro pretty early on because we needed something so we can schedule and communicate this and that. I went in there and turned everything on, and just every night I would come at 10 o'clock at night, get home, and I'd just start clicking buttons in there to try to figure it all out. In that early stage, 4 years ago, House Call Pro's advanced so fast, so much, and it's given so many opportunities that I wish we would have had at the beginning. Again, my own limiting beliefs might have been in the way. So if someone's starting off now, you want to turn everything on. Mm-hmm. Turn it all on. You can use it all, but implement it immediately.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be overwhelming when you're starting a business. You're like, I don't understand that piece, or maybe I'm not quite ready for that piece yet, or maybe my business can't even use that piece. But I think for all the things that we build, they're built with intention for other home service businesses that have been asking for this kind of features, these kind of things for their business to be used. So if you can do it earlier on, you're really going to be ahead of the game. But like Clayton said, this sometimes has to happen after hours. This is not maybe something that you could do during the day because you got the rest of the business to run. But there's definitely some extra, sweat equity and time you can put into it to really getting it to kind of hum along. What do you think what do you think is one of the most underrated features of House Call Pro? What's something that you feel like doesn't get talked enough about, but is pretty critical to your operation and helping you grow this quickly?
I couldn't tell you which ones that aren't talked about enough, but I can tell you what works the best for us is intake. We actually have dispatch questions out, so my technicians have the answers they need to be able to solve the problem before they even get there. Making sure we're answering them, as well as the call recording. That whole recording process and tracking of numbers, where they came from, our tracking processes, that helps us make the right decision. Instead of making an emotional decision, we can trust our gut, but then where's the data that backs it? Taking both of them. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got to trust your gut and just hope for the best. And if you hesitate, that's causing more problems. But now the data reinforces what you've already done. And the more you have tracking on it, the better. And those two help us the most.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, I would say not enough people talk about it, especially the call tracking numbers, because, if you've got your number in lots of different places, being able to understand where the call is coming from can definitely help you. You don't need to do every single little piece. You don't need a million numbers out there. But if you've got a couple main channels, that'll definitely help you kind of hone in on what things you can double down on or what things you can slow down on. And then I think that customer intake too that you mentioned, be able to make sure people are saying the right thing all the time. And then having the call recording so the technician, when they're out going to the job, can know like what they're about to run into versus, kind of flying in blind and not really knowing. All they know is like, oh, the water isn't working. And they just have a whole extra piece of context to make sure they got the right stuff on the trucks.
And the customer doesn't see doesn't think that you're communicating with your office if you go in there blind. The more we seem in sync, the better the more the customer's already going to trust us. They do business on know, like, and trust.
I like that a lot. I didn't even think of that, but that makes total sense. If they feel like there's good communication between the office and the technician, they're going to feel like it's a more well-oiled machine. And they're also going to be probably more open to your suggestions when you're like, hey, you should X, Y, and Z, because they probably feel like you have all the facts, or at least part of the facts, before you get on site there. What other things are you thinking that, if you would have used them 4 years ago when you first started, that you now know are important besides the customer intake, that you tell some younger company like, hey, make sure you get this thing in place kind of day one?
Get a CRM. Half of them want to think they don't need it. Well, I won't use it. Use it, but use it entirely. Don't just half-ass it. Just don't do it halfway. It's going to be a problem. And half the time, there's that CRM. It will help you so much, especially problems your team has. Listen to your team. Half stuff goes in there. You got to find. Sometimes it's how you use this to work there, but take full advantage of all of it. Or that's what I would have done at the beginning more: is track more, take advantage of all the stuff they have in the CRM.
Yeah, I mean, CRM, that's like your lifeblood. Those are your clients. Even the ones you get early on, those are people that you'll be able to call on a couple of years from now, or they'll call back in on you. But, there's all these new features and things we're launching to help you get back in touch with those customers. And all of that can help you get through slow periods, slow seasons. That's the real value of your business. It's not the depreciating trucks or I guess the office building definitely will be doing good. But, there's a lot of things that don't appreciate, but that customer database definitely does. And starting that from day one is super important.
House Call Pro has given us so many reviews, just the way you guys have it set up. I mean, we have 40 to 50 reviews just from the processes we have from the CRM. Then that just generates organic work from there too.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a compounding nature to it too. The earlier you start, the more reviews you get. The more reviews you get, the more people that book you, the more people there are to leave reviews. And it's like, oh man, I wish I would have started putting $100 away when I was, 2 years old. I'd have 8 figures now. But no, reviews serve as that same function. And when you're doing advertising too, those reviews play into your advertising, making the advertising cheaper. So if you don't have a lot of reviews, it's going to be harder for you to get your name out there. It's going to make it harder for your whatever ad unit you have to convert. It's going to put you lower on the LSA rankings if you have less reviews. So, those things, there's definitely like an interplay between that inorganic and the spend marketing too.
100%.
If you had to recommend like a book or a podcast or a show that's maybe something that really inspired you, because you've been able to grow this business super fast, what are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you doing like outside of work? Because you obviously know your stuff. This isn't your first rodeo. So
first book was E-Myth. It opened my eyes to a lot of things there. And from that, then a lot of John Maxwell books. Leadership, building on off of all of that. We have a company Audible account that I listen to Audible mainly. It helps me so much more, but I make it where my team can actually listen to Audible accounts. We have a company Audible account that there's no excuse not to listen to growth books or leadership books, so we can build our organization and be on the same page of growth.
I like that a lot. Definitely. I mean, John Maxwell and the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, developing a leader within you. Like, there's so many good ones there. And Michael Gerber's like E-Myth. If you're in the HVAC, he has like an HVAC edition. I don't know if he has a plumbing edition one.
He doesn't, but I've listened to the HVAC one.
Yeah, but like the same things just apply, across all industry. Don't think that because it's just HVAC, like you're not going to get value from it. No, you're absolutely going to get value from it. But yeah, those are definitely good books. And I love that you have a team Audible account. I almost feel like I need to steal that idea and get that for our House Call Pro team members here. But yeah, like listening to that, being able to do something productive, when you've got windshield time, rather than just listen to like talk radio or just music. I think there's a time and place for that, but if you can kind of fast track that growth, I feel like that's definitely something that'll help you out in building your business. Well, this has been super awesome, Clayton. Is there any last parting words of wisdom you want to leave with our audience here today before we wrap up the show?
Get out of your own way and trust your team. It's the biggest thing. Once you start doing that, and you're just going to start growing, look for other resources of extra coaching. Listen to the books. Try to grow every day, at least 1%. You're going to be moving forward.
I love it. There's so many good golden nuggets here. There's going to make some really cool reels for our social media team for sure. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here today, Clayton. And for everybody else, tune in next week for another edition of the Superpro podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Thanks, Clayton.
Have a good one.
The Superpro podcast is brought to you by Housecall Pro, the leading platform for the home service industry. Housecall Pro streamlines your workflows and simplifies everything from scheduling and dispatching to communication and billing. Unlock the full potential of your home service business with Housecall Pro. Work smarter and more efficiently with streamlined workflows and detailed analytics. Win more business and serve your customers well, every single time. Join more than 40,000 home service pros who have already revolutionized their businesses. Work smarter with streamlined workflows, get organized with centralized information, and scale your business your way. Learn more at housecallpro.com.